If you're looking for a sign to stop waiting, this is it. Welcome to How to Star in Your Life. I'm Natalia Jansen, speaker, coach, and founder of Starring in Your Life. This show is your invitation to stop playing a supporting role in your own story and start taking center stage. You're not here to survive the scene, you're here to own it. Let's begin. Today, I have another special guest, a dear friend. Her name is Carla Sridevi Cohen, and she's going to share her journey on, into stardom in her own life story. And I'm going to let her tell you more about who she is, what she does, and how she stars in her life. So, welcome, Carla.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be on the show. I really appreciate it. And it's great to be able to be here with somebody I feel so comfortable with. So, a lot of times on podcasts, it's not so easy, just feeling connected, but it's here between us, which is great. So, thank you so in terms of being a star in my own life, it's funny for me in a way. I don't really feel like the star in my own life. I do feel like I have stepped out more onto the stage in a bigger way, but I think there's still room, like a lot of us, it's a journey. It's always funny to me when people say, well, I teach whatever it is, mastery, and I'm like, I don't think we ever master. I think we're always mastering. That's how I look at life. So right now, I work with women leaders who are tired of overthinking and and they've been hiding their power. So I help them stop that, because most people don't struggle because they're unqualified. They struggle because they think they have to wait. They think, like, I have to get more qualifications. I need to be, I don't know, I need to learn how to do every little aspect of my business, whatever. I will tell you that I fell into my business kind of accidentally over the years. And I love the women I work with nowadays, because they're very ambitious, they're gifted, they're sensitive, and they're just ready to step out there in a bigger way than where they are. And they're feeling like they don't know what the wall is between them and that piece they're looking for in their journey. A little story was I started originally, just to go back in time, once upon a time, I worked in Hollywood, and I used to work with A-list celebrities, so I was never on stage. I was always the person in the background helping. I had people like Bette Midler and the Bee Gees and Michael Jackson are some of the kind of people that I worked with on their campaigns. I was part of their team, so there was many of us working together, but mostly two of us did the majority of the heavy lifting. Loved my job, and it was, but it was a different time. Like there was a lot of change going on in society. Like people were still trying to find a new way. It was after, the whole 60s, but into the next era where people were just trying to it was really disco time. Like people were, I remember going to a disco skating rink and having a blast and then playing the best music. And there used to be a lot more of those skate rinks where people could go just hang out. But anyway, so I was in Hollywood and loved it. And then my boss left and started his own agency for public relations. I was working for the largest PR firm in the world, I should say that. And when he left, everybody thought I would get promoted. And that's not what happened. I was like one of the hardest working people in the place. I would fill in wherever they needed. I would work overtime. And but what they did was, instead of putting me in the role, even though I'd been carrying 50% of the accounts and doing 50% of the work, they decided to put a man in who didn't have the relationship with the clients and hadn't done any work on the campaigns. That was my first instance of being hit by like reality, in a really big way. I didn't understand it. And I was heartbroken, actually. And so I was going to leave the firm. Oh, and the insult to injury was, why don't you stay and help this guy do his job? And I'm like, nah, that's not going to happen. So I didn't stay there much longer. I did end up working for a very powerful woman in the industry, and then eventually I decided just briefly, I got recruited by another PR firm, and I worked they brought me in as a vice president. So it was like, that was an affirmation of like, you do have the skill set, even though you haven't been treated well. But I didn't see it as a woman thing at the time. I really didn't. And I had another experience later on in life where it was a kind of a similar thing. Well, my boss who I loved was fired. I was doing story development, and they just let him go. You know, he was an amazing guy. He was sharp and he knew his stuff, and they promoted me. They basically told me to take over his job, but they didn't give me the title, and I did have to negotiate. I got a lesser title, and I got a much less salary, than about half what he was making, but was doing all of his work and mine now. So I ended up putting in my 40-hour week went to 70-hour week. You know, I was writing scripts, I was helping writers, I was packaging with talent into movies and turning around and selling it to the studios. And then my body started to just like give out on me.
Yeah. Did you realize then that that's something to do with you being a woman?
You know, at the second, yeah, thank you. That's such a good question. And at that point, well, here's how my mind worked. So instead of really taking it, it took me a few years really to see that. Like now in hindsight, it's so clear, right?
Right.
But at the time, what I did was I internalized it as I must not be good enough, you know?
And don't we all do that?
Yeah. Yeah. And very common, right, among women. And especially, you know, I see a lot of gifted women out there who, you know, they deal with things like imposter syndrome, no matter how much they know, how much they're certified, no matter how good they are, you know, they're wrestling with this thing. And so as women, not only do we have our own emotional baggage that we deal with, right, that we take these experiences and we internalize in maybe a way that needs some adjusting, you know, to support us. We also have those societal things coming in and cultural things. And I didn't, you know, a lot of those limitations that I can look back on now, most of them I wasn't consciously aware of at the time, right?
There's your keyword. Exactly.
You know,
Well, a lot of these patterns, they keep repeating because they're taught, they're ingrained in literature, they're ingrained in the media, and it's just the way things are done. And finally, we're in a space where we're starting to break things down and we're questioning, and our awareness is becoming more expanded. That's
exactly. Well, and so I went home. I had to eventually quit. You know, I started falling asleep at my job. I was so exhausted, and you know, if I work harder, if I just do more, you know, like maybe I'll get the money, and so I ended up in bed for 2 years, and the doctors couldn't actually nail the cause. They said I had an elevated white blood cell count, which was true. It was very high, and I had a constant fever. So, but when they couldn't find answers, which was also crushing for me because I had them set up as like, you know, doctors and parents have the answer to everything, right? Like, and so what I found was it really wasn't, it became a journey to figure out how to heal myself. And that's where I started to learn about like how the emotions that we hold on to in our body that we don't necessarily even recognize, like 95% of our emotions are in the unconscious part of our brain, not even the subconscious, right? They're in the unconscious where our values are held and all those things. And so what we don't realize is we take those experiences that are traumatic, that we don't even maybe recognize as traumatic, we take them in, and there's an energy that forms in our body, and it stays there until we move forward into healing that energy that's behind the emotion. So it's like there's the energy, and then there's the emotion, and then there's the thought, and then you think the thought over and over again, and then there's the belief, and then the belief causes your reality. And then we create the cycle over and over again, and that's what we call a pattern, right? And we don't realize we're stuck in a pattern. And so part of my healing became learning how to understand my body's language, like what's that little twitch telling me? What's that whatever? What's my fever telling me? What does constipation tell me? You know, not in a Louise Hay way, which is what a lot of people think of, because she was one of the pioneers in terms of writing things down, but really understanding individual body language and learning how to interpret that and then remove those things that are the patterns that are blocking us. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes, I agree with you. Consciousness and awareness it's all about that. And it requires not being caught up in the emotion or in the unconscious pattern, but having the awareness when you're doing something and you are up against a result that you don't like, instead of trying harder, which is insanity, right? Trying the same strategy and expecting a different result.
Mm-hmm.
Classic definition of insane behavior. Having the awareness to notice it in the
Mm-hmm.
moment, step back, and then separate. So that for me, it's like a deep breath. I take a
Mm-hmm.
deep breath and then I release the tension in my body when I realize that I'm struggling against something and I'm trying to force something. And when I become aware, I go to breathe, relax, and then what am I doing? What am I trying to accomplish? And then how can I do it differently so it's easy, so it flows.
Right.
So that's my go-to
Yeah.
when I
Well,
catch
and for
myself.
me, I'll just look, and I totally agree with that. I agree with that idea. It's like you have to be able to be the observer of what's going on instead of recognizing, instead of identifying with those limiting beliefs or thoughts. And that's really hard since it's like um, 85% of our thoughts are negative and 95% are repetitive.
Well,
So
yeah,
we
because
have
they're
a huge,
habitual.
it's a big battle, right? To
Yeah,
try to get through to those positive things, you know?
exactly. Because we're designed to conserve energy, right? When
Mhm.
you're learning something new, it requires energy. It
Mhm.
requires focus, attention, and sustained repetition. But we are always looking for easier, simpler ways to do it. Once
Mhm.
you've learned a pattern, then it becomes unconscious because now this is something familiar. You already know how to do it, so you don't think about it.
Right. And
But
it's
then we
easy.
don't realize that so many of our habits we learn as we growing up
Mhm.
are not good for us,
Right.
or they are limiting, or they're not our own.
Yeah.
They were imposed upon us, right,
Mhm.
by the teachers and society and parents and cultures and traditions, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And so the idea is when you find yourself in a space where your life does not feel good to you, when it feels either wrong or stale or stagnant or completely burnt out and exhausted, when you can start questioning that and you can start repatterning and realize
Yeah. Yeah.
things aren't working.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that became, that became the way that I healed myself. So I actually I started with meditation, transcendental meditation, and then I moved on. I studied with shaman and healers and more traditional therapies here in the United States. And over time, I was very into. I started as really putting my hands on people to help them heal as I healed, and over time I sort of left that behind because I found ways to be able to sort of very quickly release those energies that are causing the emotions with my clients. And I started morphing. People were saying like, you know, you have you ever like, oh, I had $1,000 jump in my profits. I had I just got a job offer for double what I thought I could do. And this was right after our session. Carla, have you ever thought about being a business coach? And I'm like, no, but I have been doing contracts for 20 something years. I have been doing all of these other things. I was used to negotiating and making profits for charities. I'd never thought about, oh, that's business coaching, right? Like, so over time, I started to morph. And what I do now is I marry like that business coaching with the healing so that people are clearing those blocks as they're moving forward with their activities. So even the thing like as simple as working with entrepreneurs, one of the things you've heard over and over again is like find your niche. What's your niche, right? Like who do you want to help? Who do you feel passionate about? And for me, I feel really passionate about it's not just female professionals over 40. It's I want every woman out there who wants to be financially independent to feel like she can do that like this without having to think about it, and have the confidence that she can support herself throughout her life. Like as I grew up, and I don't know what age you are, I'm so bad at judging, but I grew up with, and it's still a very common belief is the man is the plan, right? And the man is not really a plan, right?
No, not anymore. And I mean, I shouldn't say that. There's still so many cultures and so many traditions and people who still choose to believe that. And you know what? For some people, it may work, and that's okay. What I like is that there are options, that is
Mm-hmm.
no longer the norm, that
Mm-hmm.
it's a choice.
You have a
And
choice.
that's the key for me, that
Mm-hmm.
everyone gets to choose, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of that, I heard a little bird told me that you have a book coming out.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't
Huh.
you tell me how that came about, what inspired the book, what is the book about, and what will readers discover as they read it when it
Well,
comes
let me show you what it looks like. Woo! Here you go, guys. This is a proof I just got. That's why it's got the weird little stripe on it. I'm really proud of this. I love and it's called
out?
Radiant Revolution, the Rise of Feminine Wisdom and the Future of Leadership.
I
And
love it.
yeah, thank you. I'm very excited about this. This is my third book now. My second book was a bestseller, so we're hoping this one it's not officially published yet, but it will be very soon. So what inspired the book was somebody else said to me, you have some really unique ideas about leadership, and I love the way that you're phrasing it and how you're talking about it. And so people understand, well, they know the term anyway, emotional intelligence. A lot of people think they understand what it is, but maybe not so much as they think they do. I know they did this survey of something like 85% of the people who think they're emotionally intelligent are not as emotionally intelligent as they think they are, which is pretty funny. But this is taking it to another level. So emotional intelligence, like being aware of your emotions, be able to manage and control them, but also the feminine way, bringing in the feminine, which is understanding energetic intelligence, like how we listen as females. What do we tune into, and what are we not allowing ourselves to tune into? How much are we trying to conform to a male model of what leadership looks like? If you look at most of most of the networking groups out there are based on a male model of networking. Like when you go into a corporation, women will make themselves more in a more male style in order to fit in and be more accepted and be taken more seriously. And this
Yeah,
is about, we shouldn't have to twist ourselves into a weird little pretzel, to be considered a leader. And so it's about being true to yourself, and it gives actual practical tools on how to understand when you're out of alignment, how to bring yourself into alignment, and how do you, more importantly, if you're working with teams or leadership, how do you help them become more inclusive of their team and really allow their team to bring in their uniqueness and their ideologies and their visions that they have? Because honestly, the best solutions come from collaboration when we're willing to listen. And the old corporate model is not that, right? It's the old
right.
male model is not that.
That's right. And I love that because I am I as a coach, we look at different types of coaching, depending on who the client is, especially when I coach teachers in theater. Some people are looking for just practical help, tell me what to do, so they need facilitation. But
Mm-hmm.
there's need collaborative approach. They want to see what you do, they will have ideas, and then together we can create new solutions. And I absolutely agree with you that so much of the dominant model was really male, very very well, the balance, the scales were kind of off.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really beautiful thing, that your book is going to help create that space for women to embrace the femininity, embrace the softness and the energy that we bring, and still make it a powerful and impactful as leaders.
Yeah.
See, the way I look at it is water. For me, water kind of resembles that feminine energy,
Mm-hmm.
and I consider it to be the most powerful substance on earth, because the water, as humble as it is, right? It's always flowing to the lowest level, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
always going downstream. but it is also persistent and powerful. It'll wash away the biggest rock and reduce them to dust, right?
Right, right.
So there's incredible power in the softness, in the feminine, in the energy that we can bring, that like you said, it can be very inclusive. It
Yeah,
can.
it's and also for me it's like when I think about how I the ideal what I think of what I consider ideal leadership, right? Or how do we move forward in a time when innovation is really important? You know, we have a chance to jump forward as a society socially because especially now that so much is being given to AI and automation and robots and all these other things. What makes us different as humans is that we can exchange emotions and exchange ideas, right? We are it's not the result of some a like if you have a project that you want to work on and you let everybody in think of it as an orchestra. Everybody in the orchestra gets to play their instrument, and what happens when everybody collaborates and that music becomes like an ancestral orchestral masterpiece, right? I can't even say the word, but you
Orchestral,
understand what
yeah.
I'm saying. It's like as
Yeah.
opposed to, okay, we're going to do it this way. So, and all you hear in that case is the oboes playing, right? Like there's no other, instrument that can be heard. And so when we collaborate, it becomes like music where another thing, it's like another
You're
presence
right. A whole
evolves.
new thing can be created,
Right, right.
right? Because if there's only one person and we're following one idea and everybody else is afraid to share their ideas,
Right.
we are missing out on
Yeah.
so much, on so many possibilities,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
I I I'm absolutely in agreement with you.
Yeah,
I
so
think,
that
yeah.
that's where we're going with the book, and it's going to be if for people who are interested, is okay to say where it's
Sure,
okay.
absolutely. Please
Oh,
tell the
yeah.
listeners where they can get the book.
So it's as I said, it's not out yet. I don't know when you'll exactly be seeing this, but if you go to you could by the time you see this, it may be up on Amazon on its own. But you can just go to Get Carla's Book, and Carla is spelled with a C. It's Carla's Book .com, and you can just sign up and be on the pre-release list, so that we have the launch. You will be on the list and you'll know. The actual launch is planned right now for my birthday, February 25th, which is coming up, soon.
Very good.
And yeah, and by the time this airs, people will have, it will be out there. But yeah, if please come and be part of the launch. I'm excited for that, and I want to help me spread the word to as many people as possible. Yeah,
It's very exciting.
yeah.
Very cool. So, tell me something else. You mentioned at the beginning that you're not really quite feeling as the star in your life, but you are on that journey. So tell us about what that feels like.
Well, I'll tell you what I see in myself now. Like things, I'm just thrilled. I'm not saying I got it down by any means. I'm working on myself, just like everybody else out there, hopefully, that's listening to this. Um, but what I see is things that I used to hesitate about, or there would be this kind of something there, like a little barrier, the kind of stuff I help my clients with. I don't feel those blocks like I used to feel in front of me. I don't see them because I do have the ability. I'm very highly intuitive, very developed, so I can see things, but I don't see them. It's like the things that I used to hesitate about now, I'm just going, oh, just go. Like, just go. All right, yeah, your hair doesn't look perfect. Yep, it's a bad makeup day. Whatever, because I think we started at the beginning of this talking a little bit about people feeling prepared, for stepping into things or not stepping into them. And um, it's the same thing. It's like if you think about how many, I don't know, just a question to your viewers. If you're listening, just like think about how many changes of clothing do you go through in the morning to feel like you're in the right clothes before you step out the door, right? Like how many of us go, that's not the right, oh, that doesn't look good today. The next day it could look perfect on you, but you know what I
Right,
mean? So I
right.
feel like I'm not doing all the wardrobe changes, like it's just like, okay, you know what? I'm finally willing to accept more fully that I recognize that I'm not perfect. I may never achieve what I consider perfection. On some level, I am perfect by, in God's image and all of that. I believe that. But have I discovered that fully? No. But am I closer to it? Yes, like closer to that level of acceptance. And I think what I tell clients when they get stuck sometimes, I'm like, you know what? Maybe you're not ready to go all the way from here to here, but can you be willing to be in that other place? Can you be willing to step up on the stage in a bigger way, like kind of what you're asking me here? And
Right.
so I feel like my willingness is more there, and I just feel like I'm more ready. And it's also more like, instead of that part of me that would see like, oh, so and so is better at that than me. She's better at articulating it. She's prettier, whatever, all the things that we go through in our heads. I don't let those things stop me anymore. I just kind of look at it and like, yeah, but you know what? She has her people and I have my people, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And I fully believe that your clients, you're perfect. Like if you're listening to this and you're a business person and, or you're an entrepreneur, it's like your clients are waiting for you. They're not waiting for somebody like you. They're waiting for you. And I think accepting that in myself and recognizing, okay, yeah, there are people, I am the unique key to many people's locks, but I may not be the only key for them, right? It's just a
There you
matter
go.
of, do they feel that, do they feel what I feel? Like, do they feel that I can be the one to help them, you know?
Yes. I love that. And I believe that I absolutely agree with you that there is the moment, first of all, I don't believe there is anything such thing as perfection,
Yeah.
because I think it's a concept that we created in our minds that is part of the self-sabotage. It's actually a way to procrastinate and not to do things because
Exactly.
you're constantly preparing, or you constantly feeling like you're not enough and you need to do this and this and that, so it's going to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So just accept that it's not going to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. It's okay. And that's not the fun part, because how can you be good at something when you haven't done it,
Yeah.
right? The only way you're going to get at some good in something is by doing it. And yes, the first time you're going to do it, you're going to suck at it. And
Yeah.
it's going to be funny and adorable or completely embarrassing, and it's okay.
Yeah.
But unless you start doing it, you will not have that experience, and you will not have that data and
Mm-hmm.
information that you need, because thinking about something, reading about something is not the same as having the actual knowing by doing it.
Yeah.
And then when you're doing it, you are discovering things. Oh, well, this was easier than I thought. Oh, this is not so great. I need to work on that. But that's organic and that's authentic. And that's what I love to do with, you know, I use theater and improv to help people step into that, like into
Mm-hmm.
that presence, into that authenticity, and let go of any idea of perfection, just being in the moment
Mm-hmm.
and be willing to be in 100%. Like when you're playing a game, right? You cannot play a game halfway, right?
Right.
You can't be playing a game when you just like sitting in the seat and you're just like observing.
Yeah.
You're either in or you're out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you
Mm-hmm.
got to be 100%. So I really like that, because
Yeah.
you're right. That is the essence of the quality of someone who is playing a starring role in their own life story, feeling good in your own skin, being okay with being imperfect, being okay with trying new things, and learning along the way, and not expecting to have all the answers.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And I think there's another piece to that, though, another component I don't think people actually recognize.
mm,
And that is that they are not playing. Not recognizing that you're not playing is a very common thing. Like
mm,
it's funny, like like a fish doesn't really see water, right? But he's in it, or she, all day, right? That's part of their life. And I find that that's where a lot of people are. They're in their water and they don't recognize that there's a life outside of the fishbowl, or because they're actually blind to the fact that they are not moving forward, they're not jumping in. There's all these other justifications and things going on in their head,
mm,
and those might seem real, and I'm not saying they're totally unreal, but a lot of those things that we give credence to are smoke, and the smoke needs to be cleared, right? And so that's why a coach like you and a coach like me, we're there to help people recognize that the smoke is blocking their vision, that they're holding themselves back and they don't even realize it, and pointing out their blind spots in a very kind but what's the word,
Right.
firm way, so that they can achieve what it is they said they wanted to achieve. Because that's what stops people too, is the blindness of the fact that I don't even recognize I'm in my fishbowl.
Right. And that's brings us back to what you said. It's about awareness. It's about
Mm-hmm.
becoming more conscious. And yes, it is difficult to see yourself when you're the one in the picture. And
Mm-hmm.
which is why we all need people who will mirror to us
Mm-hmm.
what we're projecting that we're not aware of. I
Right.
mean, there's certain things we are aware of, right?
Mm.
And there's certain things we're not. And
Right.
there's certain things we are willing to see
Right.
and aren't. And yes, having either a coach or a mentor is so important
Yeah.
because they can be your mirror. They can help reflect back much more clearly what is it that you're doing or not doing,
Mm-hmm.
and then it help you get more clear on your intentions, right? And or
Yeah.
aligned so that
Yeah.
you're actually doing what you really want to be doing. So many
Exactly.
people have this idea of they say they want something, but when you have a conversation with them, nothing about what they want is being said. They
Mm-hmm.
only talk about the problems or
Mm-hmm.
the obstacles or the circumstances that are preventing them. But
Mm-hmm.
not one idea or thought or focus is on the actual thing that they
Mm-hmm.
want. And so many people are not even clear on what it is that they want.
Yeah.
Do
Well,
you find that?
yeah, I think that's in a way the fault of society, because we're being programmed. For those people who watch TV on a regular basis, we're constantly being programmed. Look at the images on magazine covers that like a lot of people I know now are having plastic surgery because they're trying to live up to these models that are on the front of the magazine, right? The emphasis for looking younger, looking whatever. I just think that we we set these, again, you mentioned it earlier, we get things from family, we get things from teachers. Actually, the work that I do sometimes goes all the way back into the womb and generations before we even recognize that has impacted our behavior here.
Right.
So, it's hard, I think, for people sometimes to see, what's in the bowl, to see the water, because they don't, you don't question even traditions, right? Who questions traditions? I don't know. Like, I was raised in a Jewish family. We were not super, super Jews or anything like that, but we did the main holidays. And what's interesting to me is like how those traditions reinforce the things that were, some of those things, traditions reinforce limitations. Like, my brothers were sent to religious school to get, I forget the training. I can't even think of the word right now. But they didn't send their daughter, right? They didn't send me, which I think is interesting. And that's a bit traditional choice. It's not because they were trying to be whatever.
Right.
So, but they didn't question that because that's how they were in their fishbowl, right? That's
Right.
that's the water they were raised in. So, I think coaches are so valuable. And I have a whole bunch of statistics on it, but basically, when the more you can declare your goal, you can get some support from some friends, you can write out affirmations, and every time each one of those things you do, it adds your chances for succeeding even more.
Mhm.
But when if you really want to hit your goals and you really want to reach them, you need the hand of a coach, because when there's that kind of accountability present, people really rock their goals. They hit those goals. And even
Yeah.
if they don't, they come to a much higher level of functioning than they did before. Higher level of satisfaction, higher level of personal acceptance, all the things that happen as a result of going through the growth process.
Right. Exactly. I mean, you look at Olympic athletes, right? These are the best of the best. They are experts in their field, And
Hmm.
because they're experts, they don't stop being coached, right?
Right, right.
They understand that they need to have someone who can continue to push them beyond the limit where they're there,
Hmm.
because there's always more. There's no ceiling, but you can't get there yourself, again, because you can't see everything by yourself. You have to have someone looking from the outside to guide and support and challenge and hold you accountable. I really
Well,
like
yeah,
that.
and also holding that conviction that you deserve this and you can do it, because that's really important. Like I know that my conviction for my clients, my belief is far exceeds what they believe in themselves. Like my
Exactly.
vision for them is way beyond what they see for themselves. And that's my job, but it's also what I love to do. It's like, look, let's hold the possibility of all the good that you can achieve. Like instead of what if this happens or what if that happens, you were kind of talking about that, where people get into a negative spiral and they're not looking at solutions. You know,
Right.
what what if that did happen? You know what I mean? In a good way, right?
Right.
What if that possibility did happen? You know, like, okay, you could say, well, what if I fail? What if this is a mistake? But what if you don't fail? And what if it isn't a mistake, right? And so just learning to get into that habit of a more, resilient mindset, right? Which is
Right.
kind of what you were pointing to earlier when you were talking.
Right. And I mean, even
Mhm.
failing is an experience. It
Right.
gives you more information, it gives you more data, more
Oh yeah.
accurate, concrete data that you can then build on.
Yeah.
So I am a big fan of just doing things, trying things, and figuring things out as I go, instead of sitting around trying to think about them or
Yeah.
try to find all the answers, because that's like a stumbling down the rabbit hole, you know?
Yeah. Well, I have to share, I would just share quickly. I had one of my coaches, he shared a story where he's very, very successful. He's one of the top coaches in the world. And he was very funny. He's telling this story and he said, he basically did his first offer from stage and how he lost it while he was trying to, tell everybody. It was the most important part of the class was, getting signups for his coaching business. And he broke down in tears in front of everybody. And this is a man, which is, even more interesting, right? And it was great that he shared it, that he was willing to be that vulnerable. But he said, look at where he is now. And, here we are. And he didn't learn because he gave up after he broke down in tears. He learned from that experience and he went back and did it again and again and again till he makes it look easy.
Right.
Right.
Yes. And that's the key. And that's what we got to remember. And it's true for everything, whether you're learning a sport, whether you're learning how to read in first grade, right? All right.
Right. Right.
Whether you're learning how to be a public speaker or how to, be a successful business person. But yes, you learn the best by doing it and putting in the action.
Yeah.
So before we wrap things up, I have one last question for you.
Okay.
What would be your um, one piece of advice or kind of a golden nugget that you would want the listeners to walk away from this conversation?
Uh, I think I would go back to what I said earlier, like kind of a little different way of putting it. It's like the world is filled with infinite possibilities,
Mhm.
and choose, if you don't know where to go, choose somebody who can guide you. I mean, I climbed Mount Kailash many years ago. It was 17 hours up shale, which is like go up 10 feet and then you slide back 4 or 5. And it took a whole day to climb. And I had Sherpas and I had a guide. And if I tried to do that hike on my own, I probably would have either given up, because I gave up so many times in my mind, or I would have been dead because of the mistakes I would have made. But I knew that I needed the right people to guide me. And I think that's what I want to leave people with is get somebody, maybe, it's not Natalia, maybe it's not me, but get somebody who's ready to help you to make your climb up the mountain. If you're serious about success, get the right person. And yeah, so that's my piece of advice. And also, can I say my website also? If people want to,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yes.
if you want to reach out to me, very simple, carlacohen.com will take you to my website. And it's CarlaCohen.com. And we both, I just want to thank you all for, I know Natalia will say whatever she says, but I want to thank all of you for tuning in today and listening to us. And again, thank you to Natalia. Thank you so much for having me, because it really is an honor to be on your show, and I really appreciate you.
Oh, I appreciate you, and thank you so much for sharing. And I cannot wait to get my hands on your book. Um,
Yay!
I love it. Very cool. You don't need more time. You don't need permission. You just need to decide. It's your turn. Thanks for listening to How to Star in Your Life. I'm Natalia Jansen, reminding you the spotlight is already yours. Now step into it.